During World War II, 900 million people were involved, and of those 50 million died, including 458,000 Americans. And in the course of that war, there were 144,000 Americans that gave up their freedom and went into captivity. Those were prisoners of war, and that's what I was. I was a prisoner of war. I saw a German heading straight for me, and he's yelling, "Raus mit den Hands, raus mit den Hands," raise your hands. My body was frozen in fear. And he kept yelling, and I couldn't get my hands up. And he jabbed at me with his bayonet. Thankfully, it hit the button on my field jacket and slid off and sliced my left shoulder. He retracted and was going to stick me again when I was finally able to get my hands up. And that's when my status changed from a combat infantryman to a prisoner of war. What was it like? Well, let me just summarize for you on my prison experience. The first is hunger. A hunger that is forced on you from the lack of solid food for months on end. A hunger that will force you to eat anything and everything that's roaming around. Second is being cold. A cold that wraps your body in uncontrollable shivering and causes your mind to become dull. Fear, a nameless terror, takes control of your body. In fear, when you lose control of your body functions, when bombs fall on you and lockbox scars, the fear of catching a horrible disease that's running rampant in the camp, and you know there's no medical facilities or medicines that are available to help you. And of course, the worst fear is of never being free again. Depression is the fourth effect on the mind. Thoughts of family and home lock your mind in endless daydreams. You wonder, do they know you're alive? And this perhaps is one of the cruelest of tortures. Then there's a question asked of me. I'm Jewish. Did they know? Well, you all know what Hitler did to the Jews in the resulting Holocaust. As to the question if they knew, the answer is yes and no. Yes, they knew, and no, I didn't know they knew. When I was first captured, my interrogator was a graduate of Penn State University. He spoke perfect English. He asked me my religion. I replied, atheist, because I had destroyed my dog tags just prior to being captured, as they had an H on them for Hebrew. During World War II, all of our dog tags had your religion stamped on them for the chaplain's use in the event of your death. Later, after my liberation by the Russians, I found my prison record and discovered I hadn't fooled anyone. As you can see on my prison record, it says right there, Jew. So I thought I had fooled them, but I hadn't. After being captured, I was forced marched for 3 days on frozen feet. I had no food or water. I was made to lie down in the snow and frozen fields at night, with no shelter, only my field jacket as my outer covering. On the fourth day, about 40 miles east of where I was captured, I was packed with 65 other GIs into a boxcar, which normally holds 40 men. One day in April, all American prisoners were forced to line up in front of our tents in column of 5. The Germans then ordered all Jews to step forward. Immediately, a whispered command was passed through our ranks. No one stepped forward. The Germans went crazy, threatening to shoot everyone. After an hour or so of this, another whispered command went through the ranks. Everyone stepped forward. And of course, this made the Germans even more violent, and we were forced to stand in the rain all day without our meager rations. Now, this was my only experience for being a Jew, but was the formation of a bond of friendship formed behind enemy barbed wire that exists to this day. Why the Germans never looked at that prison record of mine, only the good Lord knows. Other American GIs in other camps were not so fortunate and were sent to the mines or death camps to their death. Approximately a week after this incident, we were again forced out in front of our tents. We noticed extra guards and machine guns had been placed at the guard towers. The German officers were arguing in front of us for many hours. Nobody had any idea what was happening. It was only years later, and verified by the International Red Cross, that Hitler had ordered all American prisoners of war to be shot that day. On the morning of April 22nd, we heard artillery and gunfire not far away, but we didn't know where it was. A big tank came down alongside the fence, made a sharp right turn, and flattened the fence. And when the turret opened, a large, furry, black hat emerged with a toothless face and exclaimed, "Ruski." You can imagine the pandemonium that erupted through the camp as the realization settled in that we had been freed. Our experiences as POWs are absolutely unknown to most Americans and many veterans, but ones that we can't forget. We can't even explain it to our closest friends and family. And living as close to death for as long as we did, we learned certain fundamental truths. We learned the real difference between good and bad, and we learned how to judge human beings by absolute standards and what real friendship is. These are things that we cannot forget and become a part of our lives. Today, most of us former POWs are plagued with recurring nightmares and always those nagging questions. What was it all for? What good did it do? And finally, does anybody care? For me, the answers have come by revisiting battlefields, talking to the people whose lives were liberated, by the monuments that have been erected both here and abroad, and by you young people who take an interest in World War II.